The sun was beating down mercilessly on the training ground that day. Dust clouds rose with every movement as soldiers went through their drills. Among them was Sarah Mitchell, a rookie sniper who had joined the unit just 3 months ago. She was talented, no doubt about it. But she had something else that sometimes worked against her, an abundance of confidence. Commander James Reeves had been leading this special operations unit for over 15 years. He had seen countless soldiers come and go, each one bringing their own unique strengths and weaknesses. But Sarah was different. She had natural talent, the kind that only came along once in a blue moon. Her accuracy was impressive, her instincts sharp. But talent without discipline? That was like a loaded weapon without a safety. Dangerous. On this particular afternoon, the unit was conducting a long-range reconnaissance exercise. The objective was simple: identify and mark targets at various distances without being detected. Sarah had positioned herself on a rocky outcrop, her rifle steady, her breathing controlled. Through her scope, she could see the targets clearly, each one carefully placed at different ranges. Commander Reeves was making his rounds, checking on each team member's position and technique. When he approached Sarah's position, he noticed something that made his experienced eye narrow with concern. She had adjusted her position slightly, moving her rifle just a fraction to the left, seemingly tracking something beyond the designated target area. He moved quietly behind her and observed for a moment. Then, in a calm but firm voice, he said what would become a defining moment in both their careers: "Get out of my scope." Sarah was startled. She hadn't heard him approach, and the commander's voice, though not raised, carried an unmistakable authority. For a split second, she considered protesting, explaining that she had spotted something interesting, perhaps an additional training element. But something in the commander's tone made her pause. She pulled back from her scope and turned to face him. The commander's expression was unreadable, but his eyes held an intensity that she had never seen before. Not directed at her, anyway. He didn't say anything else. He simply gestured for her to move aside, then took her position behind the rifle. What happened next would become the stuff of legend in their unit. Commander Reeves adjusted the scope with minute precision, his movements economical and purposeful. He settled into position with a fluidity that spoke of thousands of hours of practice, of missions in hostile territories, of moments where a single shot meant the difference between life and death. Sarah watched, her initial frustration giving way to curiosity, then to absolute amazement. The commander's breathing pattern was different from anything she had been taught in basic training. It was deeper, more rhythmic, almost meditative. His finger rested on the trigger guard, not touching the trigger itself, waiting for the perfect moment. Then he began calling out targets. Not the ones that had been officially designated for the exercise, but ones that Sarah hadn't even noticed. A reflective surface at 1100 meters. A barely visible marker at 1300 meters. A camouflaged position at 1500 meters that blended so perfectly with the terrain that Sarah had to squint through her own scope just to confirm it was there. One by one, the commander acquired each target, calling out the range, wind speed, angle of elevation, even factors like barometric pressure and the rotation of the Earth that Sarah had only read about in advanced ballistics manuals. He didn't fire, this was a training exercise, after all, but his precision in identifying and calculating each shot. Absolutely flawless. But it was the final target that truly left Sarah speechless. At nearly 2000 meters, beyond what should have been possible with their current equipment and conditions. The commander identified a target that even the exercise coordinators hadn't mentioned. It was a challenge target, placed there specifically to test if anyone in the unit had the skill to even spot it, let alone calculate a shot for it. The commander called out the exact specifications for the shot, windage, elevation, the specific mil-dot holdover required. Then he stood up, stepped back from the rifle, and simply said, "Verify it." Sarah quickly moved to the scope, adjusted it according to the commander's specifications, and there it was. The target, exactly where he said it would be, with the crosshairs positioned precisely where the shot would need to impact. She ran the calculations in her head, cross-checking with her rangefinder and ballistic computer. Every single number the commander had called out. Absolutely perfect. When she looked up, there was a small crowd of other unit members who had gathered, drawn by the commotion. The commander looked at each of them, then back at Sarah. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried across the silent group with perfect clarity. "Talent will get you in the door," he said, "but it's discipline, experience and respect for the craft that will keep you alive and bring your team home. When I tell you to get out of my scope, it's not because I'm pulling rank. It's because I've been where you are, and I've learned lessons that I hope you'll never have to learn the hard way." The message was clear, and it resonated not just with Sarah, but with every person present that day. This wasn't about ego or showing off. This was about the difference between being good and being exceptional. It was about understanding that there were levels to this profession that couldn't be rushed, couldn't be shortcut, could only be earned through years of dedicated practice and real-world experience. Sarah felt a mixture of emotions, humility, certainly, but also inspiration and renewed determination. She had been talented before, but now she understood what it truly meant to master the craft. From that day forward, her approach changed completely. She listened more, observed more, practiced with a focus she had never had before. The record that was set that day wasn't about distance or accuracy alone. It was about the perfect execution of fundamentals, about reading conditions that others couldn't see, about a level of mastery that turned a weapon system into an extension of the shooter's will. Other units heard about it, tried to replicate it, but the specific combination of factors that day, the conditions, the equipment, the shooter's experience, created a moment that remained unmatched. Years later, Sarah would become one of the finest snipers in the military, eventually training rookies of her own. And when she encountered a talented young shooter who reminded her of herself, she would sometimes take them aside, adjust their position slightly, and say with a knowing smile, "Get out of my scope. Let me show you something." The legacy of that day lived on, not just in records or statistics, but in the way it transformed everyone who witnessed it. It was a reminder that in the pursuit of excellence, there's always another level, always something more to learn, always a reason to remain humble and hungry for knowledge. And sometimes the greatest gift a commander can give is not praise for what you've done, but a glimpse of what you could become.